Cheer, cheer the red and the white. Honour the name by day and by night. Lift that noble banner high.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonds and joining me today is SM.
Hey guys.
Vaughn.
Hey guys.
And RW Fan.
Hi guys.
Now unfortunately we're coming off a very disappointing 25-point loss against Fremantle, but on a positive side, our season can be considered a success with all the injuries we've had. SM, do you want to take us away?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was a disappointing loss, but any fan with their eyes open would have gone into that match expecting us to lose the game. We were only a very outside chance to even get close to them, I guess, with them having had the week off. So I think we can hold our heads high in that respect. In regards to the actual match, though, and that especially that first half, I think the team should be quite disappointed with the level of intensity they brought. I know that we were quite tired. We had a lot of injuries and all that sort of thing. But the fact that we barely even got it into our 50, I think we didn't have a disposal in our 50 until pretty much the end of the second quarter. After, obviously, we got it in the first quarter.
It was the first 27 minutes of the second quarter we didn't get a disposal in our forward 50.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was disappointing, but pressure they were under because credit where it's due, Fremantle were absolutely fantastic.
Okay, Vaughn, can I get your thoughts?
So I think...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go for it. That's what I was going to say.
Okay, Vaughn, can I get your views on the match?
Look, obviously it's disappointing to finish a season if you don't win the grand final, and I guess with the injuries we've had, we don't want to go on too much about it, but with the injuries we had, I guess we should at least be grateful we are in this position, and some of our younger players who we didn't think would get a game got a sniff of finals footy, and hopefully it'll give them incentive to stay with the Swans kind of thing. For the game itself, I'm not sure I 100% agree with what SM is saying about the effort being disappointing. I thought we were just completely outclassed to the point that even though we were trying, we were under so much actual pressure and so much perceived pressure that to even get away a clean disposal is quite an achievement under that sort of finals intensity. So all credit to Fremantle, but it was not a very fun game to watch.
Okay, RW Fan, can I get your views on the match? RW Fan?
Yeah, it's the end of... Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Yeah, sorry, I just thought it was cutting out there. Yeah, it just feels a bit strange knowing it's the end of the season. It always feels a bit weird, the last game of the year, and just knowing during the course of the year, you get your adrenaline up, you're looking forward to the games every week, and then knowing that there's no game, we're not going to be seeing the team play for 6 months. You always feel a bit flat the day after. But just on the match itself, I totally agree about us being outclassed. I think going into the game, I probably only gave us maybe a 33% chance of winning at best, and that's bearing in mind Freo's season, the fact that they finished ahead of us, they're hosting a home final, they've been in awesome form this year, and we're really going to struggle, I think, with our injuries and stuff. So it was always, I think we had to roll the dice if we were a chance. Like, we had to start well and take the crowd out of it, but we couldn't do that. I mean, they did keep us in the game early with their poor kicking. I think they kicked 2 goals 9 in the first quarter, but they, like a good team, they didn't drop their heads after the yips. Sometimes when a team gets the yips, they can drop their heads, but they didn't do that. They just kept coming harder and harder, and I was almost in awe a bit watching them play, and just how they just kept coming. They just came in waves, and every time we thought we were clear, we weren't. Like, it was just it was a final, like, it really was a finals lesson, and I'm kind of glad we made it that far, because it was great for the younger guys like Cunningham and Rampy and Biggs to actually experience that kind of pressure. And yeah, anything else? Probably Rowan. Probably the positive I had is maybe Rowan when he came on. He just made things happen when he came into the forward line, even though the game was gone. It just gave us a little taste of what he might be able to do next year if he comes back. Just a little taste. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, just on that comment about the waves, I mean, did anyone else get the sense that, especially when we had the ball, they almost seemed to have almost lines set up? So like you're saying, we'd clear it through a pack, but there'd be another set of Fremantle players right behind that who could kind of get the ball off us. And I think it was best illustrated when there was about 4 or 5 Swans running in a line, handballing it amongst themselves to get through. It almost felt like a rugby match in a sense, and I know that might sound a bit funny as a Swans fan commenting about rugby, but it felt very much like there was almost lines of players going up against each other. I know that was just my sense of it. It was ferocious to watch the Fremantle pressure. It was quite impressive.
No, fair enough. Well, it was a little bit like the way we used to play probably in 05, that era, where we used to force stoppage after stoppage. But the difference with Freo is they've just taken it to another level with their fitness.
They ran both ways so hard to create the extra numbers and create that illusion of a wave. So, all credit to them.
Because when Rossline was with us, he in that we played that lockdown stuff very well at forcing stoppages. But they've got they got the shutdown game, but also they can run, that really makes them really dangerous.
That's why I found it amazing when I think it was BT made the comment that the Swans have never felt pressure like it, because that's exactly what our game plan is. We created that game plan. They just played it so much better than we've ever played it, and that's what was so amazing about their game and what was so respectable. But it was, we were being beaten at our own game. It was simple as that.
At the same time, if you look at the players we're missing from our team, if they were all back and playing, I think AJ would have been really handy last night.
AJ would have been really... AJ or LRT.
Guys, I have a question. If we were full strength, what sort of a chance would you have given us in that match? I reckon we would have won that match.
Yeah.
I would have given us a more likely chance than losing if we were at full strength.
I think it would have been 50... It's maybe gone up from maybe 50-50 to maybe
I would have
60-40
given it
away.
I would have given it 60-40, 70-30.
Yeah.
Look, you had an Adam Goods, who, even if he's half fit, is one of the best players in the league. Still, just such an inspiration to our lineup. Throwing LRT and AJ into defence. Reece Shaw to actually give us a chance to really split some of those lines. Tippett would have given us a bit more of a forward presence, and I actually felt that we really missed him.
But the one I would say is Tippett's actually the one who I'd almost say is the least significant in, because when you look at the second quarter, we weren't even getting it into the 50. There's not much impact a forward can have if we're not getting it into the 50.
The difference between what Tippett and Reid, especially when Tippett was fitter when he first came in the team, he would actually lead up the ground and give us an option, give us a contest down the line. Nothing wrong with Jesse White. He's done fantastic this year, but
I thought White had a fantastic game.
He was great on the weekend, but against McFarlane, we really needed another taller option to present down the lines and get us a way out. We're bombing it out long just into a pack of Fremantle players. We need someone to get the ball to ground at least.
Yeah, that was the other thing. We're just so static with our ball delivery. We just would take a mark, we'd go back on the mark, and in that time, Fremantle would get everyone behind the ball, and it would just be the same process over and again. We needed to actually have that line breaker, like Jeddah or Cunningham, to actually take the game on, run down the lines, and actually get it into the 50, which just didn't happen.
Yeah, I think Jeddah was still probably a bit short of a run a little bit. I mean, he was not, he kicked the first goal, he did a few things, but probably still, to come into a game like that, it's really, really, really tough for poor old Jeddah to make an impact, because there's not much he could have done, especially as he hadn't played for so long.
One positive I actually took out of the match again was Biggs' performance.
Yeah.
He may have only got 15 disposals, but when he got it, he tried to at least do something, and he was a lot better defensively than I thought he was. I was really happy with his game.
Yeah. Even Everett wasn't too bad, I thought. I mean, he's actually
19 disposals.
Again, but, it was not. I mean, the whole defence, the defenders generally had okay games. They didn't kick a huge score, even though they were inaccurate earlier, but the defenders did okay. Even Grundy, Richards, they were all okay. I mean, Freo don't have a hugely tall forward line, but the defenders were okay.
I'm not sure. I don't, I think the defenders did okay for what, in the situation, how fast the ball was coming in from clearances. And I guess the blame would fall onto our midfield rather than our defence, obviously. But it was just so... I just felt so helpless watching them mark nearly everything, and their forwards were playing in front, and just little crazy kicks that you don't expect people to mark, and they take a mark out of nowhere. And I guess that's not really the defence's fault, because they can't possibly always be blocking every single hole. So I am a bit disappointed with our midfield.
I was amazed. Yeah, I was going to say, I was amazed at their midfield more than anything, just the way they were able to get clearance after clearance. It was just phenomenal.
Seppo actually was mentioning on the Fremantle podcast the other day that we were going to struggle. All of Fremantle's board and a lot of their fans were believing we were really going to struggle with the height in their midfield. And we couldn't budge them at the contest. We had more players around the ball, and they were still just brutalising us.
Yeah, bigger bodies. Yeah.
Like, you look at Mundy, Fife, Barlow, these are big players. Like, even Main as a defensive forward, you just can't budge them.
Yeah.
I think too much was left to too little. For starters, we did not win that ruck contest. They got an extra 20 hit-outs or something.
That Sandilands.
Yeah, something crazy like that. So for starters, that didn't help us. And, with Jack getting tagged out by Crowley and Hannah's just deciding not to play AFL football pretty much, too much was left to Kennedy, I thought.
Yeah.
So
McVeigh was alright as well.
Yeah, you can't just have 2 out of your best 5 or 6 midfielders not playing. You're not going to win a game like that. It's simple.
Yeah, I was looking at Kennedy's stats. He had 8 kicks and 16 handballs, which shows maybe the pressure he was under because he just couldn't get free enough to kick it. Yeah, so they're all
6 clearances. The other one who could hold his head up high was Parker on the weekend. He was brilliant.
Yeah. Parker had a good game, and the other one who I was really, as I've already kind of touched on, was Jesse White, who I thought was absolutely phenomenal. And my actual favourite moment from White wasn't a disposal or anything that he did in that sense, but when Jack was having a bit of a scrag with Crowley, White went over and gave Crowley a huge bump to sort of say, hey, leave him alone sort of thing. And that was just great to see. And I really think that convinced me that White wants to play for the Swans and he wants to stay here, and that if we can meet him halfway, he'll be in the red and white next year.
Fingers crossed.
I think you're reading too much into a bump.
My favourite Jesse
He
White.
seemed to be pretty up and about for a guy that's been pretty much well maligned for a couple of years by the fans. So it was good to see.
Well, he plays the thing I like about him. He's got his limitations, but he plays like he wants to play for us. So
exactly. That's what I mean.
So
he looks like he wants to be here.
You'd like to keep someone like that in the club, even if he ends up going. But he may well end up going. But I think I'd like to keep him if we can. But
what I loved about Jesse White was his tackling pressure on the weekend.
Yeah.
That one play where I think it was 3 tackles and a bump, and he was still trying to run after the ball.
Wasn't there that one passage where he got a holding the ball decision and then about 30 seconds later got another holding the ball decision?
Yes, that was great.
It was phenomenal.
He's so athletic. It's just starting to really show now, but...
So I guess, being
I'd almost rather keep him than Mumford now. I know that's pretty shocking to say, but... we can use Tippett as the second ruckman.
Oh, and I thought Mumford did okay. Mumford was beaten. The rucks were beaten pretty badly.
But
he had quite a few... He had 7 tackles, which is not too bad, but yeah.
No, nothing against Mumford. I'm not saying he isn't a bad footballer or anything. I just think Jesse's really important for us to keep now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, we may as well actually go into Brownlow predictions at the moment. And what do you guys believe is going to happen? Sam, RW fan, do you want to take us away?
It's... I had a look at the predictors a little bit, and... everyone's saying, Ablett's a favourite, and I know there's an issue about playing in the side that missed the finals, and traditionally, in the past, sides that finish in the lower half of the 8 or just miss the 8 have had Brownlow contenders. That's why we've had so many, despite not being in the finals, not in the history. But so I think he might. I still think he'll probably get there. I think they've won enough. The Suns have improved enough as a team that I think he'll get noticed. He'll he'll get noticed more in their win. Like, he plays... He's had an awesome season. I mean, they've won enough games, I think he'll probably just get there. Probably from Selwood, probably.
Okay. SM, what are your views on the Brownlow?
I disagree slightly. I don't think Ablett will quite get up. I guess I've focused quite heavily on his games because he's been in my dream team, as he's been in everyone's dream team, I suppose. But I've noticed his down weeks quite sharply, and I just think that in a Suns team, that when it's performed and when it's won games, he's been absolutely outstanding, like in that Collingwood game, and he'll definitely get the 3 votes in a lot of games. But I think his down periods were just a bit too sharp in a team that now has quite a few other players who stand out and can get Brownlow votes. I actually think Scott Pendlebury's a decent chance to win it. I know Swan's also a decent chance, so they might end up taking votes off each other, or so people think. But even in previous years where that's been theorised, you rarely see players actually miss out because they've lost out on votes, other than, I think, Ablett at Geelong would be the fair example. But I just think that Pendlebury, when they've played well, has just stood out much more to me than Dane Swan this year. So I guess, yeah, Pendlebury would be my pick to just edge out Ablett.
Yeah, I think if Ablett doesn't win, I think Selwood might just pip Swan and Pendlebury.
Yeah, Selwood's another one who's played pretty well. So I think it's going to be pretty line ball between those three.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to split. I know, looking at the age predictions, they're pretty. They have all four of those guys pretty close. So yeah, So I think they'll all be right up there.
Okay,
yeah, it'll be quite interesting.
Vaughn, what are yours?
I think I agree with what SM is saying, just about Ablett's down period. I think for about a month or something, he was a bit quiet, and in that time, I think both Pendlebury and Selwood had some really good games. I think Selwood will take it home, just because I'm not really sure why, but I don't feel like Collingwood have had the best year. And I mean, when they've won, they've absolutely dominated, but when they haven't, they just haven't had prominent enough games for them to get the 3 votes, in my opinion. So I actually think that Selwood would take it home.
Okay, I've been running with me and a few friends. There's about 5 of us. We try and watch all the matches during the week, and we basically put in our own Brownlow votes over the year in a group on Facebook. We've got a few different results. Unfortunately, we have Selwood pipping Ablett by 1 vote, 29 to 28. And Swan and Griffin equal third on 26.
Okay, Griffin.
After that, Pendlebury is equal with Jack and Rockcliffe on 23. And Watson and Hannahs are both on 21 afterwards. Which is weird. I thought Hannahs was on 19, but we've got him on 21.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like you're saying in that, so you've got Hannahs and Jack both finishing quite strongly, and I guess that's sort of that idea that...
We've got Hannahs bolting out.
Yeah.
He's only... He's 2 votes behind Ablett at round 12.
Yeah, well, Hanbury did have a very strong start to the year. If you remember, he kicked 4 goals on Crowley in our earlier game against Fremantle, so it just shows that he can play pretty well when he turns it on, when he actually turns up, I guess.
I wonder if how McVeigh will go, because he's been in some stellar form at times during the year.
We have McVeigh on 12.
Okay, he probably wouldn't get noticed as much because it's more getting...
it's me. I'm a pretty big McVeigh fan. So I'm not going to lie about that, but... and he does stand out a bit, but we've got him finishing on 12.
Okay.
We think that his move from midfield to defence will probably hurt him a little, and he hasn't been a high vote getter in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. When he moved into the halfback flank, I guess we saw his value because he filled a need for us. But from an external perspective, he wasn't really having flashy games. So I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
We've actually, the third coming in for the Swans, we've got Kennedy.
Yeah.
We've got Kennedy finishing on 17, which is a lot higher than I had thought before we tallied it. Which is different, but he's had a very underrated year.
Yeah, Kennedy's output this year hasn't really diminished from last year. It's just the form of Jack and Hanbury at different times has really improved out of sight. So he's kind of almost taken a back seat to them, I suppose, because they're a bit flashier.
The other one that's high for Sydney, we've got Malcheski finishing with 13.
Okay, so it sounds like it could be a pretty good year for us at the Brownlow.
Yeah, apart from that, then there's just a rapid drop.
Do you have Mitchell polling any votes?
Mitchell polling. Yes, we've got Mitchell polling 1 vote.
Oh, good on him. Hopefully he does get a vote. Be good to see.
From his first game, the Essendon
That was
one.
a pretty impressive debut, I must admit.
We've got him polling a vote for the Essendon match.
Good stuff.
Which is surprised. I thought we would have had him getting votes in, what's it called? One sec. I'm just trying to find the next game. It's... Okay.
Was our match after the Essendon game the Adelaide game?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly? Yeah, which was... I mean, he had a pretty good game in that one as well, but I think the whole team was absolutely outstanding in that.
Yeah.
It actually makes me want to go back and watch some of those games now just to console myself now that the season's over.
I'm still not worried about... I'm pretty happy with the team this year.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Adelaide game we have Hanbury with 3, Jack with 2, and Rock with 1.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
That's odd. I would have thought we would have had Mitchell getting a vote in that one.
Oh, I think the whole team had a pretty even effort there. But look, it's good just to see. It's good to see a group of Swans all hopefully being recognised on Brownlow night for their good years, and I think that's what we have to remember is overall the year's been pretty decent. We haven't played too poorly, and so there's a lot to look forward to for next year.
We had Jack finishing top 3 in the Coaches Association. We had 4 All-Australians, wasn't it? Or 3 it was?
Yeah, 3 I believe. McVeigh, Hanbury and Jack.
Yeah, McVeigh. Yeah, we had 3 in the end. It was Geelong who had 4, that's right. 3, we've had most... Jack or Hanbury have finished pretty high in most media awards this year, which is impressive.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, though.
When you think where we were a couple of years ago, struggling in the A, to where we are now, where we can have a huge amount of injuries and still finish top 4, there's a lot to love about the team.
It's amazing. The question I got to ask is, how do we have the best and fairest finishing this year? Like, Brownlow votes are completely different to what's going to... Like, we don't have Nick Smith pulling a vote this year, but it's nearly guaranteed he'll finish top 5.
I don't know. I wouldn't have him quite in the top 5. I think there's been a few pretty impressive players I'd have above him, but definitely top 10.
Mm.
I don't know. How do you guys see it?
Yeah, I might give a shout out to S120 to put up his Bob Skilton medal predictions thread earlier, and he had Smith. Yeah, his top 5 was Jack, McVeigh, Kennedy, Hanbury, and O'Keefe, and Smith down at number 8. I think that's really the top 4. I would probably agree with. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it can be really hard to predict. You just don't know what criteria they use, and someone like Rampy could even. I know
that's the one that I was thinking of.
I think Rampy's going to do really well because the Swans have this habit of rewarding players not based on like how good a game they play.
They go by
expectations.
expectations. They go by
how
expectations.
they exceed expectations. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
If Rampy's expected to come in and just play a bit part, and he's ended up playing 20 games in the year or 22 games in the year, I could see him doing remarkably well.
I still think someone like Jack will win it though. Or maybe
McVeigh.
McVeigh has been really impressive.
I think it'll be Jack.
I think it'll be Jack. You
one
can't.
of the two.
The fact that Jack has also finished so high in the Coaches Association votes really shows you how high. You could probably almost go off the Coaches Association votes for a real preview at the best and fairest this year. And if you look at our top 3, you've got Jack, Hanbury, McVeigh.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to be the top 3 at our best and fairest this year. Probably.
Yeah.
After that,
so who do you see rounding out the top 10 out of the top 5? So Rampy in the top 10, Smith?
I'd have Rampy. I reckon Rampy will finish 8th.
Yeah.
I've got Jack, then Hanbury, McVeigh, Smith at 4, then Kennedy, After that, I've got Pike finishing 6th. I think he's had a brilliant year this year.
Yeah, I think Pike's had a great year.
Pike will finish top 6 or 7. Easy. Oh, then after that, it's gonna be interesting because we've had a lot of someone like Grundy could pull well this year as well. I know we've torn into him a few times on this podcast,
I think
but his first half of the year was brilliant.
I was going to say, if you remember, I think the curse for me is that the podcast is only really fired up for the second half. I was actually praising Grundy a lot in the first half of the year, the way that he's actually improved this year. So I do think he'll bowl quite well in the best and fairest. And he pulled it together towards the end of the year as well. I think my blast has kind of woken him from his slumber.
Finals player will probably be McVeigh. We can't really pass that.
Yeah, I think that's
absolutely
pretty obvious.
Young player of the year, Rampy.
Yeah, Rampy or Mitchell, I think.
I think
Probably Rampy.
Probably Rampy. And
Yeah, Rampy's just been more consistent and has played more games.
most improved.
I think Jesse White might even get this one.
Yeah, Jesse, that's a good one. I think
Or even Everett as well, I was saying.
one of
Everett.
those two, maybe.
Everett.
Everett. I didn't even think of him.
I think it'd be Everett or as a real outside one, Parker.
Maybe. I think they'll reward someone who's kind of broken into the 22.
Yeah.
And remember, Everett was always
Everett
being
or White.
talked about being delisted last year.
Yeah, geez, he's really shown up a few people on our board and a few critics.
What about best clubman? Someone like Shaw?
Yeah, I was just about to say, Shaw seems to always win these ones.
Shaw or
Yeah.
someone like... I think Richards has won it in the past as well.
I think they'll give it to someone in the team. Or possibly, hasn't Jared Moore, or it could be someone in the reserve, hasn't Jared Moore won it before?
Because that's what I was going to say. They seem...
I think he's gone to the VFL, isn't he?
The best clubman seems to always go to... I mean, it doesn't always,
It could
but
probably
it
go to
goes to a
someone like
player
Richard
who's not
Wilson or
necessarily
something.
in the best 22. It's just to someone who's good around the club.
What? Oh, here's an outsider for best clubman, Rowan.
Oh, potentially. I like Shaw purely because apparently he just seems to be so good with helping other players with their rehabilitation and all that sort of stuff.
Would they give someone best clubman 2 years running though?
Well, I mean, if he's still deserving of it, I guess, but I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting. I think because of our injuries, we've actually had such a big spread of players who've actually impacted on the seniors. So there could be some quite interesting results.
I could see them giving it to Rowan. I was actually thinking that before Bonds mentioned it as well. I guess it's almost like a encouragement award for sticking it out and I guess just making it back when I guess people were expecting him to be back next year.
And his personality around the club seems to be rather...
Infectious.
Yeah. For instance, the reception he got when we found he was playing his first game in the reserves.
Yeah,
and they gave him the Guard of Honour at training.
Yeah, so there's a couple to choose from, I suppose. It just depends on what criteria they go with.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a really interesting event, actually. I wonder if they would live stream it again.
Yeah, that'd be good to see.
It was fun to watch last year, and next year it should be. I reckon I'm pretty confident about next year as well. Get a few of these players back from injuries and this extra year of experience on these kids, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of which, in the final week, how do we see the grand final panning out this week?
I think we're all on the Freo bandwagon except for Von.
I'm not on any bandwagon. I don't really like either of the two sides. If one had... I just want them to keep playing out draws until the start of the next AFL season.
Unfortunately, after the first draw, they play extra time in the second.
Well, in that case, I just keep hoping they draw until they have to play extra time until the start of the next season. I don't really... I'm not very emotionally invested in this game at all. Obviously, probably out of the last few grand finals, this is the one I have been the least interested in because I can see reasons why both teams deserve it and why both teams don't deserve it, but I'm a firm believer in defence winning premierships, and Fremantle last weekend played almost a very Swans-like football, and I guess we've seen how that shapes up in a grand final against Hawthorn last year, obviously. So for that reason, I'm going to tip Fremantle by maybe 7 or 8 points.
I'm actually completely the opposite to Vaughan. I'm thinking, I'm actually really looking forward to the game. I think it'll be a cracker of a grand final. I mean, Freo are really this year's anywhere, anytime team. They won in Geelong. They've shown they can win in Melbourne this year. I mean, they haven't beaten. They haven't beaten the Hawks. I mean, they haven't beaten the Hawks in Melbourne since 2001. So that's a hoodoo for them to break if they can do it. But we broke the MCG hoodoo last year, so now it's up to them to see if they can do it. The interesting thing for me is how, I think the two keys for me are how Freo handle Hawthorn's forward line, because Hawthorn won on Friday despite Roughhead and Buddy only having one goal between them, and they share the ball around. So I think it'll hinge on the fitness of Michael Johnson, because you know that, so they're probably the defenders like McFarlane, Dawson and Johnson, how they work together. The other thing for me is, can Freo kick enough goals? They need Pavlich to have a big one, but they're probably getting in. They get an even spread for their midfield as well. So I think it'll be a really fascinating game. And I think Hawthorn are in for a bit of a rude shock to find out when they'll encounter some immense pressure. That I think Fremantle will bring that pressure again next week. And I think they play like we do. They play like we do, but just to another level. I think it'll be a great game. My prediction I think they'll get up by. Freo probably get up by about 10 points, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree. I think that assessment that Hawthorn are in for a rude shock is completely correct. I mean, going into the game against Fremantle, as certain as I was that we were going to lose, I was still in the back of my mind a bit sceptical about just how good they were. And boy, was I shocked by just their pressure, their ferocity around the ball, and their two-way running, and just their game. It was just amazing. And I definitely think Hawthorn aren't going to be prepared for just that level of intensity. And the game plan is finals game plan, and that's the way they've been playing, and that's the same as how we play. Yeah. So I think they're pretty much set up perfectly to take this game on, and I think it's going to be an absolutely cracking game. To be fair, I'm a little bit the same as Von in the sense that this was probably my least preferred grand final out of the four possible combinations. But at the same time, I'm hoping that Fremantle can get their first grand final win, and keep the flag out of Melbourne for another year. So I'll say Fremantle by probably about 25.
My heart says Fremantle by 4. My head's telling me Fremantle by a lot more. I want a close match, preferably with Franklin missing after the siren. That'll be the best grand final ever, besides the Swans winning for me.
And then he can announce that he's leaving after the game.
Yes, that will be just beautiful.
In the post-match interview.
I'm
off to Western Sydney.
I do honestly think Fremantle will have Hawthorn covered. It's going to be a great match. But I think...
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think Fremantle... We didn't hit Fremantle as hard as Geelong hit Hawthorn.
Yeah, I think Hawthorn...
And that's going to tell in the last quarter. Hawthorn have... don't sell them. They've had a brilliant year. We're not going to lie about that.
Yeah,
we got thumped by both teams. But the Fremantle match was so much worse to watch.
Yeah,
I guess also on the flip side, you kind of think that a great side like Hawthorn with all their finals experience isn't going to let the grand final slip 2 games in a row. And I suppose the other side of that argument to what you just said, Bonds, is, we made Fremantle look really good. And that's not saying that they aren't really good, because they are. Obviously, they're in a grand final. But we were so injury depleted and all of that. I think we made Fremantle look like a better team than what they actually are, in a sense. I feel like just because Hawthorn won by a smaller margin, we have to take into consideration that Geelong are a much stronger team than us.
I'm not talking about the margin in the end or anything. I think it'll be a great match and either team can win. I just think defence will win the premiership instead of attack.
Which Fremantle, I think you said yourself on.
Yeah, I did say that. I'm just saying, it's easy to get caught up with how good a form Fremantle are in, but you have to factor in the quality of the opposition.
Oh, definitely. I just think if you look at it, even Hawthorn's game plan is tailor-made to get destroyed by Fremantle's pressure.
Yeah.
Their precise kicking under the way Fremantle were tackling on Saturday is going to be very interesting to see which one wins.
Yeah, and I think like you're saying, the counterpoint is of course that Geelong hit Hawthorn really, really hard, and they're going to be quite sore. Whereas, yes, we made Fremantle look good in much the same way that Carlton made us look good, but I think the rest will actually help Fremantle because they're not injury depleted like we were, and the fact that Hawthorn have been hit so much harder, and they broke the curse in a sense. So their grand final was last week. That pressure is off their back. And whilst they're still going to be really intense and really hungry to win the grand final, I think there's a slight amount of deflection onto the win against Geelong. I think they're a bit too caught up in that win, just in my sense of it.
I'm not sure. I'd say just don't underestimate their resilience, because they were 20 points down at three-quarter time, and it's not easy to win a prelim final from coming from behind at three-quarter time, and they kept on. They were really resilient in that part. They fought really well. But yeah, still, it's a hard one. Maybe we should move on to Norman Smith predictions. Anyone? Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to go past someone like... I mean, if we're going to all presume that Fremantle are going to win, I mean, it's hard to go past someone like Pavlich. I think he could be the game changer for them. So I think he could really stand up and put in a best on ground performance. Or someone like Fife, someone who can rack up the ball in the midfield and be quite damaging going forward.
From Fremantle, I think if it's going to be anyone, it'll be Mundy. He's a very, very good player, and if he's on, he's nearly unstoppable. If the Hawks do get up, I'm predicting Jack Gunson to get Norm Smith.
Is there any reasoning behind that, Bonds?
Well, he's a very, very good footballer, and I've seen him up close and personal. Let's just leave it at that. I reckon if Hawthorn get up, it's Gunson for Norm Smith. He was brilliant last weekend against Geelong.
He was brilliant. He will have to agree. He had a fantastic game. If Hawthorn got up, I'd probably maybe go Burgoyne actually, because he was also huge in the end and getting back into the game.
He is a finals footballer, Burgoyne.
Yeah, he is. But I have to go probably Pavlich. I mean, it would be fitting if their best ever player was best on ground in the grand final for them. Yes, I'd probably have to go Pavlich.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to see Pavlich win it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
for sentimental reasons, you can't go past Pavlich for Freo, but it is a bit of a midfielders award, or like a massive, key forward, like Buddy Franklin's award.
Pavlich to the midfield again. Pavlich to the midfielder.
Yeah, exactly.
We can make it happen. Sorry, Von, keep going.
I completely forgot what I was saying.
So, the Midfielders Award, so which Fremantle midfielder do you think will win it?
I think Fife will win it. I think he's pretty underrated, and I think he's the kind of player that will stand up in finals. But look, I don't want anyone to win the Norm Smith. I know that's not going to happen, but I don't really want anyone to win the Norm Smith. So there you
take
go.
your West Coast glasses off.
Yeah.
What about Crawford in the paper today?
Didn't see that one, actually. What did he say?
The way I look at it, buddy, you and your teammates will be getting another premiership this year.
Oh, of course.
He has come out and stripped. He can't see them losing this year.
Yeah, well, no one could see them losing last year either, and look how that turned out.
Exactly. What's everyone's final prediction? Margin.
I think it'll be about Fremantle by about 20 to 30 in the end. I think they'll have that too much pressure. They'll overrun Hawthorn. I think Hawthorn will get it close up, but Freo will pull out in the end.
Von?
Gonna do a 180 for some reason and say Hawthorn by 9. I know I just said Fremantle by 7 5 minutes ago.
Sorry.
But it's just the gut feeling. I can't shake it. I think Hawthorn will get up.
I'll stick with Fremantle by 10.
I'm going to go Fremantle by 21. Okay, guys, thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll hear from you next week. Thanks. Bye.